I saw this over the weekend, and the fact is not all Democrats are committing fraud. But as is true with many things Elon has set his sights on, there are real problems to be addressed here. And so, Elon, if by any chance you're watching this, I actually want to take a minute to really answer your questions and truly engage here. And if you've ever been involved in Democratic politics, or even if you've ever donated to a Democrat, like we know our audience has, you know all about ActBlue, or at the very least, you've heard the name.
And if you don't know what ActBlue is, it is a platform that helps campaigns take in donations. Think about GoFundMe. It functions in a very similar way, but Democrats primarily use it. We love her. ActBlue is our best friend on campaigns.
Yeah, it's actually only open to Democrats to use to fundraise, but it is open to all Democratic and progressive-leaning groups. And it's like Venmo or PayPal for Democrats. It's a payment processor. It is not a fund.
It's not a bank. That's not what it is.
Yeah, it's just a piece of software, but not everyone understands that. And now right-wing media thinks they have this big scoop on, some are calling it a money laundering operation. Some are calling it fraud, illegal foreign money in elections. Who knows? They're basically accusing ActBlue of everything people have said Republicans do. But now Elon Musk over the weekend has gone down this rabbit hole, which unfortunately takes it from fringe right-wing conspiracy to something we now have to address, because as we know, anything he brings up is brought to the center of the Republican Party almost immediately. So Elon, if by any chance you're watching this, I actually want to take a minute to really answer your questions and truly engage here and set the record straight once and for all. And yeah, I'm going to put this in your replies like your tweet about this asked, because I truly believe that you genuinely want to know what's going on here. And right here on Concepts of a Pod, we're going to break it down for you. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to read the tweet that Elon tweeted over the weekend that we're responding to. He said, quote, "An investigation has found 5 ActBlue funded groups responsible for Tesla protests." He goes on to name George Soros and a couple other big Democratic donors who right-wing people tend to not like. And then he goes on to say, "ActBlue is currently under investigation for allowing foreign and illegal donations in violation of campaign finance regulations. If you know anything about this, please post in replies. Thanks, Elon."
Well, Elon, I am your local field organizer. My name is Shayna, and we're going to explain to you exactly how all of this works.
Yeah, and I am Jordan. I am a Democratic fundraiser responsible for a lot of the grassroots fundraising that has funded some of what you think is some kind of money laundering operation, but in reality is just the sum total of all of these small dollar donors, everyday people who are worried about the future of this country and want to donate to Democrats who they believe will do right by this country, as is their free speech right. And for context, the investigation he's referring to is a House Republican investigation where they're looking into some anomalies that some right-wing journalist found, where donors would give small dollar donations in amounts, in many cases, larger than these people should be able to afford. So naturally, these conspiracy theorists assume George Soros is giving them this money to donate. But the sad thing is, under all these conspiracy theories, is a very real problem that is actually the problem Shayna and I started Concepts of a Pod and New Digital Now to solve, which is actual fraud committed by a small minority of grifty, shady, scammy Democratic groups that is perpetrated against our donors using the fact that ActBlue is so easy for any Democrat to use. But that's really not hard to see, except House Republicans aren't trying to help our small dollar donors. What I really worry is happening here, and Shayna, let me know what you think about this, but I'm really concerned that at least some Republicans see a chance with Trump's power grabs on everything else he's doing to shut down the system that Democratic donors like you use to support our candidates, right?
I mean, as we've seen very prominently this week, unfortunately, there have been multiple attempts from Congress and the White House to shut down people's freedoms of speech. And one of the big ones that happened this week was everything going on with ActBlue. It is, just like Jordan said at the beginning, it is like PayPal or Venmo or Cash App, but for Democratic campaigns. It's not some bank holding money. It is simply a pass-through system. It's like the tunnel between two people. That's what it does. And also, let's not be mistaken, Republicans also use the same software, but different company, different brand. They are doing the same thing.
Yeah, there's this called WinRed.
It's called
like
WinRed.
ActBlue. The same thing. And Trump uses it to commit plenty of his own fraud, which all of the money he takes for his legal fund.
By selling those gold watches and like collector cards and shoes and stuff.
Oh, yeah, it's awful. It's terrible. But given that, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you are, I mean, we have problems with this, but it's the world we live in. Citizens United says money is speech. And we should be very clear about how this money laundering stuff, whatever it is misinformation that holds no weight. And if any specific groups are committing any kind of fraud using ActBlue, that should be investigated. And that's why we started this podcast, because we as professionals in this space know there are way too many groups who are using ActBlue to fundraise, sending deceptive, downright manipulative, and fear-mongering messages, in a lot of cases threatening donors, saying, like, if you don't donate, Elon or someone else is going to take away your Social Security. And
scammy and gross, and that's not true. Or also saying that you're going to be marked as a Republican if you don't reply or if you don't donate. Those are all fake. And I know we've talked about that in previous episodes, but I want to repeat again. These people sending out these text messages cannot take away money that you are receiving from the government. They cannot change your voter registration status. I know there's some crazy texts that get sent out from, all sides of the political system trying to get money. But it's scary when you receive those over and over and over again. When you're told something over and over and over again, you're going to start to believe it.
Yeah, it's completely predatory. And unfortunately, it really hurts people who are the base of the Democratic Party, and in many cases might even erode support for legitimate candidates. And I want to get back to those people that House Republicans are citing as having given way more than they should be able to, who they think are these money laundering operations, because Shayna and I found a comment in our focus group that might explain what's really going on here, and it's heartbreaking to read. And Shayna, do you want to read it?
This is something that happens in real life to lots of vulnerable people every day. And this person, thank you for letting us know this happened to you. I'm so sorry it happened to you, and we're here to try and combat the issue. But there is someone who left a comment for us saying, as a retired widow on Social Security, I spent too much money on attempting to make the Democratic Party win. I'm now in debt from that endeavor and afraid to get myself into any further debt. Therefore, I plan to only donate to my own retirement after paying off my debt. I'm sure many other Democrats are feeling the same way too. This is something that is an incredibly prevalent issue, but this is not ActBlue's fault. It is not ActBlue's fault that there are organizations preying on older people to take money from them. That is those organizations' fault. And that's something that Jordan and I have consistently talked about on this podcast, are scam packs. And those are the people sending the scary messages. The donations are more likely than not processed through ActBlue, but ActBlue is not sending out the messages or forcing people to donate. But in this case, ActBlue is unfortunately getting caught in the middle.
Yeah, they're just as much a victim. And I mean, honestly, they could be doing a little more to enforce, but it'd be like playing whack-a-mole, because I know they actually, to their credit, banned some groups over the summer for some straight up scams. And those groups just reincorporated under new names and keep doing that every couple months or so. So there's really not much ActBlue can do. And they then get accused of this stuff. And legitimate Democratic fundraisers who are trying to either get candidates elected or build up our infrastructure, like Shayna and I are, get painted with the same brush. And I mean, I saw this over the weekend and was terrified. Like, are they gonna misinterpret what's going on here and shut down all Democratic fundraising? Because the fact is, not all Democrats are committing fraud. And like with anything, deleting it all isn't the answer to inefficiency or waste. But as I will admit is true with many things Elon has set his sights on so far, there are real problems to be addressed here. And Shayna and I have talked a little bit about what these problems with ActBlue are, the scam packs, the fact that people can send these messages that say God knows what about what could happen if you don't donate, to the fact that I think one of our focus group respondents said something about how they were upset that ActBlue was sharing their phone number with people, and ActBlue is not sharing your phone number with people. There are data brokers who buy and sell your data, and we'll admit we buy data from those because it's the best way to run an accurate Democratic donor focus group. But ActBlue is not selling your data, and they don't have the resources to combat the misinformation that's being said about them in real time.
Yeah. And something too that I know you touched on a little bit is Citizens United. And as you mentioned, we're not going to get into all the details of it. It's a very complicated issue, but Citizens United basically said that money is speech. I am someone who's very much against Citizens United, but because we are living in this era where Citizens United is law, we need help with making sure that if I'm putting my money somewhere, or if you are putting your money somewhere, that it is properly handled. And that is what ActBlue is supposed to be there for. That is what WinRed is supposed to be there for. But only one side of this coin is being attacked. Yeah. I'm so against Citizens United. But because we are living in this age where it is legal, we need help with making sure that that right is protected. And ActBlue and other software systems that help process donations to Democratic campaigns protects that free speech that my money is, according to the Supreme Court.
100%, because those billionaires, Elon Musk got his free speech when he got to throw $250 million into the election. Zuckerberg, Bezos, who owns the Washington Post, got the opinion section. He gets to use his money as speech. So ActBlue is just what allows Democrats like you, small dollar donors who make up the lifeblood of the Democratic base, to contribute and to allow our organizations and our candidates to compete with these billionaires. And there is clearly a waste and fraud problem here. But at the same time, we still have to make sure that we save our grassroots fundraising infrastructure that has done so much for our party. So New Digital Now launched concepts of a pod to kind of clean this up through transparency, because if we can't fix it from a regulation standpoint, nor should we, because we don't trust anyone to regulate. But in that case, sunshine is the best disinfectant, and that's why we like this direct-to-camera approach, where we tell you about the work we're doing with your money. And in our case, New Digital Now is the group that is building this better infrastructure to fight this fraud and to take on the misinformation that our Democratic leaders don't have time to talk about, because I haven't seen a word from any Democratic leaders about this ActBlue story. Have you?
Don't get me started on it. But part of this sunshine that I've really enjoyed getting to do each time we record an episode is talk about what our average donation is, because that's something we are super proud of. And in this case, it's like golf. The lower is better. And in the last 2 weeks, our average donation is $11.38. And, you may wonder, why is that such a great number? It's kind of a low number. That $11.38 is the average number that people are donating to us to pay for our vendors who help make all of this happen, for all of the content that you are receiving, all of the technology you are seeing. And there are thousands and thousands of you who believe in us enough to give us somewhere around $11, which we appreciate more than you know. So we are very, very proud that we have thousands of people giving us $11 instead of one person giving us some big amount.
Yeah, 100%. We are so thankful. And your $11 is what allows us to share your voice unfiltered without being told by some billionaire, no, you can't share those opinions anymore. And it allows us to talk about the news honestly and about how you feel about it. So with that, let's get into the news of today. And we're recording this on Tuesday, March 11th at around 9 o'clock at night. And I'm sure that by the time you see this, a million more things will have happened. But it's worth mentioning anyway, if for nothing else, then for when you get around to seeing this, to be reminded of something you might have missed, because one headline I saw that will just fill into a list of things by the end of the week, but that we really need to talk about is the Department of Education fired 1,300 employees today, and former WWE head, now Secretary Linda McMahon, really has begun her smackdown.
For all the people who said that they didn't believe that the Department of Education was actually going to disappear, this is, the first step.
I know the joke about Linda McMahon was a little tasteless, but I gotta say, I actually want to focus on it. The disgusting showmanship with which that cabinet pick was chosen, because he is looking to eliminate the Department of Education. That was not new. It is clearly in Project 2025. We knew it was going to happen. He campaigned on it, and now he picks somebody who runs the WWE, known for showing on live TV people and things getting smashed for fun. It's like the
anti-Department of Education, literally.
Yeah, and like he's making a show of smashing the Department of Education into a table like a WWE wrestler would, and it's just, the showmanship is so sick, you almost have to give him credit for it.
There's a lot of incredibly symbolic things that are happening like that. Whether Trump meant for those to happen or not, they are.
Yeah, and that takes us to what's happening in Congress right now, because the House just passed a government funding bill that is mostly a resolution to fund the government at current levels, with a couple exceptions, notably, and this one gets to me personally as a DC resident who does not actually have voting representation in Congress. They're cutting our budget by like $1 billion, including, notably, Republicans are defunding the police in DC, even though they're complaining about crime, which...
Oh, how the tables have turned.
Yeah, and we won't get into urban planning on this episode or whether or how we should deal with that, but we have no voting representation, which is why when they needed some libs to own just to make the hardliners on their own side happy, they just have no problem taking the Doge chainsaw to DC.
Yeah. One of the other interesting things that I was so surprised about, this was the first headline I saw about the budget, which is why I want to mention it, is that a GOP representative, Massey, voted no for this budget, but Golden, who is an independent, voted yes. And Golden tends to vote with Democrats most of the time. But I found this super interesting, specifically because of something that happened last week when Representative Al Green was censured, and there were some Democrats who voted to censure Al Green. And
none of them should have done that, by the way.
No, none of them should have done that. Someone asked Hakeem Jeffries, why didn't you, whip them into shape and get them to vote no? And he said everyone should, vote off of their heart. Something like that.
Didn't he say vote their conscience?
Yeah, vote your conscience.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Which I thought was just wildly irresponsible. But I think that leads us to where we are now, where we know that Massey put a lot of thought into voting no on this budget. We have not seen many, if any, Republicans vote against their party in this second Trump administration. And so this is the first big defect that we can see from the Republican Party, which is a big deal. But we're also seeing defects from the Democratic Party. But the problem is Speaker Johnson's trying to whip his people into shape. Our side, Representative Jeffries, what are you doing, man? You gotta work a little bit harder. Things are not working right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. And the bill has passed the House, but still needs to pass the Senate, where it needs a 60 vote threshold to avoid a filibuster, which means they do need some Democrats to come over on their side. I know Senator Fetterman has already said that he won't vote to shut down the government, but that really takes us into a discussion about what Democrats should do here and what leverage they have and how responsible it would be to use it. Because we actually asked our focus group today whether or not they think Democrats should work with Republicans to avoid a shutdown or let them own the mess they're in because of how much they've dismantled the federal government. And 64% of our focus group says they don't want Democrats to help. They would want to see the government shut down. And that is a very high percentage.
Yeah, that is
let's
that's
put
a
it this way.
That's a super high number
For voting for a government shutdown.
But I like that people are now being more aggressive. Let me rephrase that. I like that Democrats are now being more aggressive and not just trying to take the, when they go low, we go high. At the DNC, Michelle Obama flipped that on its head. Said, do what you need to do. We need to be aggressive. We need to push through all of the noise and make shit happen. I'm so glad that the masses are finally seeing that and doing that.
Yeah, I mean, one of our focus group respondents said, quote, never compromise with Nazis. And
that's correct.
It's really getting hard not to make those comparisons. And I mean, I don't make them lightly. I really don't. But if it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. So
we're dealing with fascists in the government right now. And one of the other comments we got was only work with Republicans if they show a good faith willingness to protect vital programs. And I don't think it's going to happen. So
yeah,
Democrats keep fighting, keep pushing against everything happening right now. And don't forget, if you're not an elected official, there are still lots of things you can do outside of the federal government. But if you are someone in the federal government who has voting powers watching this by any chance, first of all, we'd love to talk to you. Second of all, keep pushing, keep fighting. We're here to back you up.
Yeah, and I think that good faith willingness to protect vital programs is a really good threshold for when we can start to work with them again. Because obviously we do need to fight back hard, but at the same time, we can't be totally intransigent like Trump just moving the goalposts, because at the end of the day, we do want to govern for what's best for the American people, and we need to figure out how to do that when the other side doesn't want to, and that's going to be some combination of a carrot and a stick. But I don't think that intransigence for the sake of intransigence is the right way to go. I think we should be very purposeful in our resistance, because unfortunately there is a much higher bar for those on the side of what's right than those on the side of what's wrong.
Yeah, that is so right. And speaking of resistance and things that you can do, our petition program is going really well, and it's all thanks to every single one of you who are watching this and who have donated to us and who have created petitions and shared our petitions. I know I said this last time, but this grew into something that I don't think we thought it was going to, and we are so thankful for it. And we're so glad that you guys are interested in it too. And Jordan will talk a little bit more about the petitions that are going on right now. But we also want to hear if there's any updates that you want to the petition system. We're here at your will. We want to hear from you, and we want to know what you guys want, what you want to see done better. We will do it. We will fix it.
And before I get into the petitions that have crossed their goal since the last episode, I want to give you guys a little update on what I've been doing on the back end to perfect the petition system, because as you all know, it's still in beta testing ahead of a much wider launch that will involve a public awareness ad campaign to get people from all over the internet, not just within our focus group, to be signing it. So more to come there, but I've seen some feedback that people have been having trouble submitting their second or third petition. They get stuck on processing, and I'm looking into that, so more to come there. Bear with me, and if you experience that issue, just refresh the page and try again. It's not an issue that happens every time, and make sure to close all the tabs and click the link again from your text message if that doesn't work. And we're working on a longer term fix, and I'll keep you posted as I work on a fix. One other really exciting thing I'm working on now, this is is the second podcast episode where we're sharing successful petitions, and you can see some of the previous ones in the previous episode, but I'm working as well on linking the response videos directly to those petitions and moving the successful ones to a new archive section. So stay tuned. There will be some cool things as you check out the page and see new updates. But in the meantime, the petitions that have succeeded since the last episode, the first one, Save Medicaid. And we talked about it a little bit on last episode, but unfortunately, I think the Republicans in Congress are still talking about cutting Medicaid. I know Elon in particular has a problem with people getting the government services that our tax dollars are supposed to pay for, but that's one where we really need to be calling our representatives as much as possible to share how important Medicaid is to us. I know several of our focus group respondents have said that Medicaid is important to them. And the second petition, Shayna, let me know what you think we can do about this one, which I just put on there because it felt cathartic, and I think it feels cathartic for everyone to click that button. Impeach Donald Trump. And
yes,
he should be impeached.
Yes.
He has...
And removed from office. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. I bet Richard Nixon's ghost is thinking to himself, I can't believe
He's rolling in his grave right now.
Let's be clear. He didn't do half of the things that Trump got impeached for the first time.
There's probably a billion Watergates that have happened under both Trump administrations since the original Watergate. But no, Richard Nixon is rolling in his grave right now.
Yeah, I think John Oliver called it stupid Watergate, one of the Trump scandals. I don't remember which one. I think it was the Russia one, but...
There's a lot of those that could be stupid Watergates, but... Anyways,
let's now move on to our supporter Q&A for this episode, because I know a lot of Democrats like you are confused on what to do next, and I think this question sums it up pretty well. What's happening to Democrats? They should be in every nook of the country discussing the present situation, how Trump is destroying the country, the MAGA agenda, and promoting growth in the party. The country cannot be run like a private company or kitchen table problem. The government is more complex. It is not about making money for the investors. It is about providing services for the people and protecting the public.
That is a really, really great question. And I think I can speak for both myself and Jordan when we say we 100% agree with you. The problem is the people who are currently running our government have turned this into a business. And there are people who are deciding to comply with that. And a lot of those people who we didn't expect to comply with that are Democrats. Politics is incredibly, unfortunately, making money for investors.
Yeah.
At this point, and that's not what it was supposed to be. Speaking of people rolling in their graves, all the founding fathers are also rolling in their graves as this is happening.
Yeah, that problem of politics working and making money for the investors, though, has been a problem for longer than just the Trump years. I mean, we go back to Citizens United and we think about how, since money became speech, the people who fund politicians' campaigns in a lot of cases are these billionaires and corporate PACs, and therefore the politicians have an incentive to do things that make money for their donors who are their investors, which is why New Digital Now was built to grow a grassroots fundraising engine that makes all of you guys the investors in the future of politics. And that's what your money is going to. It's going to build a machine that can rival some of these rich guys who are spending all of their money to influence politics. We're following what they're doing, and we're using your money to figure out how to help our candidates who you support do the right thing and fight back against these guys. And it only gets harder in a media environment that favors the right wing, because it's not just politics that they have cornered. It's the media too, with Elon owning Twitter and Zuckerberg, his changes at Facebook, the TikTok relationship with the Trump administration, not to mention Bezos, the Washington Post, and now MSNBC potentially being sold off because NBC doesn't find it profitable anymore. And that leads to our final Q&A for this episode, which is, can we talk more about what media sources are reliable? And that's
Great
a hard
question.
one right now.
I think that is a question that in this very moment is really hard to answer. And I'm going to be so honest about that. I also am struggling with what are good places to actually read and watch and consume the news. It's something that no matter how involved you are in politics or in learning about and reading about what's going on, everyone is struggling right now. That is my honest feelings answer, but there are some good places that you can see the news.
Yeah. One place, and I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but I really do think it's true that you can start. And I will admit there is opinion in this, but at least it can give you some sense of clarity with some humor, are the late night comedians, your Stephen Colbert's, your John Oliver's. They do a good job of cutting through the noise and talking about what you really need to know. And
you can't forget Jon Stewart. He's like my favorite, and he retired and then came back because he was so distressed himself and everyone else was distressed. Thank God he's back.
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, the fact that he felt the need to come back says, I think, all we need to know about our media environment right now, and who really feels the burden of truth versus who's just in it for the clicks and ad dollars. And that takes me back to what my middle and high school history teachers always taught me were the best sources, which I hate to say are primary sources. The actual words coming out of the mouths and written by the people involved, which I know can be overwhelming, but as much as a lot of people boycott, I actually read what Elon Musk writes on Twitter, and this episode's framed about it because what he writes on Twitter influences what happens in the world, and it in and of itself has become news. Like, he brags about X is the media now, you are the media now. And I mean, that's true because he, with all of his power, made it so, which it's hard, but I guess hats off to you for the achievement, as scary as it is for democracy.
You know, props to him for making dreams come true. And I would also say what we are building and working on building with all of you is another source that we hope will become a trusted household name, hopefully many years from now. But we do our best to give you as much information as we can and as much correct information as we can, and, you know, well-rounded information, because every news source likes to report their own little version of what happened. And we really hope that we will, you know, eventually become that for you. And we're not able to do this without all of you and all of your support. And we can't thank you enough for sticking along with us and continuing to support us and helping us grow. And we can't wait to continue to show you all of the incredible things that we are doing with your help.
Yeah, and to be clear, just one disclaimer, we do not claim to be an unbiased news source. On the contrary, look at our backgrounds. You see our opinions are clearly stated, and our goal is to be a mouthpiece for you, for the Democratic base, to get your voice into the media, because I think the reason a lot of us don't trust the media right now is that nobody's representing our voices. The reporters are covering what the White House is saying, criticizing in a lot of cases, but it really feels like the Democrats are absent in the responses and just aren't getting the coverage. So we are building this platform for Democrats to be able to come on and say what they need to say, and we will spend the money that you are investing to boost that content so that Democrats have a fighting chance. And we can only do that with your help. So we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your support. We can't wait to show you what we have in store for you next, and we can't wait to help lead you in the fight to take back our country, because someone's got to stand up, and as overwhelming as it all feels, it starts somewhere, and it starts with someone, and the bigger we grow this movement, the more natural it will feel. So stick along with us, like, share, subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.